All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to break down the ideas from a book that pretty much flips the whole idea of networking on its head, turning it from something we all dread into a genuine superpower. This is what I took away from Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone.
First things first, let's just be real. For most of us, the word networking, it's just, it has this really negative vibe. And you know what? There's a very good reason for that. I mean, seriously, when you hear that word, does some part of you just instinctively recoil? If it does, you are definitely not alone. It usually conjures up an image of a very specific and very unappealing kind of person. And there he is. We've all met this guy, right? Farazi gives him the perfect name, the networking jerk. He's the person who makes you feel like a stepping stone, who makes every single conversation feel totally fake and transactional. This guy is why networking has such a bad reputation, and he's the total opposite of what we're talking about today. So, to find a better way, a more human way, we have to go back to the beginning. The author's whole philosophy wasn't dreamed up in some fancy boardroom. Nope, it started on a golf course.
So, everything we're talking about comes from this classic book by Keith Ferrazzi. And his personal story, well, it's actually the key to unlocking his entire approach to connecting with people.
You see, Farazi didn't come from money. His dad was a steelworker, his mom was a cleaning lady. So when he managed to get into Harvard, you can imagine, he was suddenly surrounded by kids from these incredibly privileged backgrounds and felt like a total outsider. He was intimidated, but he actually had a secret weapon he didn't even realize he had.
As a kid, he'd been a caddy at a pretty exclusive country club. And what he saw there, watching these powerful people interact, changed everything for him. He realized the most successful people weren't just lone geniuses. No way. They were a community that was constantly actively looking for ways to help each other get ahead. And this observation led him to this huge realization. Real poverty isn't just about not having enough money. It's about being isolated. It's about being cut off from the people and the relationships that can help you grow. Success isn't about what you have, it's about who you have in your corner. So, with that insight, Farazi basically threw out the old rulebook. He created a completely different set of principles for how to connect with people, a set of rules built not on taking, but on giving.
Just take a look at this breakdown. The old mindset is all about what's in it for me. It sees the world as a finite pie, where if you get a slice, that's one less for me. But Farazi's philosophy completely flips the script. It starts with, what can I do for you? It's not about keeping score. It's about building genuine relationships and growing the whole pie for everyone. And here is the absolute game changer. The real currency in this new world isn't trading favors, it's generosity. It's about being willing to help people without expecting anything in return. The relationships you build aren't some resource you spend, they're like a muscle. The more you use them to help others, the stronger they get for everyone.
And if you want to see what happens when you get this completely wrong, oh man, you have to hear the story of Hollywood David. This was a guy who refused to introduce Farazia to one of his contacts because he claimed he was, get this, saving the equity in the relationship. He hoarded his connections so tightly that in the end, they just withered away, and he was left with nothing.
Okay, but here's the thing. This idea of generosity, it can't just be random. To really connect with people in a powerful way, your efforts need to have a direction. You need a mission. You have to know where you're going before you can meaningfully help others get where they're going. Now you might be thinking, goals? Really? That sounds a little cliche, but hold on. Because the data on this is, well, it's just mind-blowing. There was this famous study done on the Yale graduating class of 1953, and what it found about the simple act of writing down your goals is absolutely staggering. Okay, just look at these numbers. 20 years after graduation, the group that had goals but hadn't written them down was making twice as much as the huge majority who had no goals at all. Okay, pretty good. But the stunner, the tiny 3% who had actually written their goals down, were earning, on average, 10 times more than the other 97% of their classmates combined. That's not a typo. That is the incredible power of having a clear, written mission. So how do you actually do it? Well, Farazi lays out a pretty clear roadmap. First, you have to find what he calls your blue flame, that sweet spot where your deepest passion and your greatest skills overlap. Second, you have got to get it on paper. An unwritten wish is just a dream, so create a real plan. And finally, you build a personal board of advisors, a small group of people you trust to keep you honest and hold you accountable. All right, so you've got the generous mindset, you've got your written goals, but there's still this one giant wall that stops most of us, right? and that's fear. The fear of reaching out, the fear of asking for help, the fear of hearing no.
I absolutely love this quote from Gyuda because it just nails it. Boldness isn't about being arrogant or pushy. It's about having the courage to create an opportunity where one didn't exist before. And if you want a powerful example of this in action, think about this story. Farazi's father, a man with little education who never even spoken to the CEO of the steel mill where he worked, had the sheer audacity to walk up to that CEO and ask for help getting his son a chance at a better life. That one single bold act changed the entire course of Keith Farazi's life. And where did that audacity come from? From a simple lesson he learned as a dad, which Farazi calls the big wheel lesson. His dad saw a broken tricycle in a stranger's trash, knocked on their door, and just asked if they could have it. The lesson is simple but profound. What's the worst thing that can happen? They say no. The potential reward for just asking is almost always bigger than the risk. So how do you build this audacity muscle? Look, you don't have to become a different person overnight. You start small. Find someone you admire who's good at this and just watch how they do it. Practice in places where the stakes are super low, like joining a club for a hobby you love. Give yourself a tiny, achievable goal, like starting just one new conversation a week. And then you just have to do it, which really brings us all the way back to the final, crucial question. If your relationships are truly the most valuable asset you have, and everything points to the fact that they are, then what are you doing about it? Are you actively investing in them with generosity and bold connection? Or are you eating alone,